to talk about books that I love that actually didn't get the greatest ratings on Goodreads, so I'm curious to try to figure out the reasons I love the books and the reasons other people didn't like them. First up, Vanity Fair, which gets ratings on Goodreads. Ignore the movie cover. I personally love the character of Becky Sharp. She's complex. You just want to dive into her psychology and why she is the way she is. But I can also understand why people wouldn't like her. I mean, there's a reason the subtitle is A Novel Without a Hero. She's not a good person, but she's fascinating, guys. I've also heard that a lot of people think the novel kind of drags. I can see that. The thing detours for a large portion through the entire Battle of freaking Waterloo, but I actually liked that part as it really pokes hard at the idea of treating war like a nice little trip abroad, with balls and parties and such, until things go wrong and oh wait, this is war! Anyway, I love this book. It took me about 4 months to read during my lunch breaks, and I felt it was well worth the time. If you've read it, tell me your thoughts on why you either liked it or didn't. Okay, next we have Walden by Henry David Thoreau. This book inspires very strong feelings in people, I find. This was the first nonfiction book that I really fell in love with. I just really like his writing style and just the perfect little one-liners that come out of this thing. But I've heard the argument that Thoreau was kinda a spoiled upper middle class guy who built a hut in essentially the backyard of his good old friend Emerson and was like, I'm living off the land. Okay, so he might have been a little pretentious, but I didn't really love the book because I harbor any desires to camp out in the backyard. I didn't come out of this a transcendentalist. I just really enjoyed his well-turned phrases as he described his neighbors. It's just so quotable. Granted, I haven't read this since I was a teen. It's on my list to reread this year though, so I may have different thoughts after that. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Okay, this one I do kind of get. When I first read it, I was ambivalent about it. It doesn't fall into a nicely predetermined genre package. It's a British boarding school tale that suddenly goes very sci-fi, and it's not a cheerful story. But then I read it a second time for a book club I was in, and the beauty of its uniqueness and the story just started to seep in, and I ended up loving it. Then I ended up reading it a third time for a different book club, and by that point I was head over heels in love. So you could argue that the prolonged exposure unduly influenced me, and you might not want to have to read the same book 3 times to get that same experience. But in whatever case, I now love this book, but a lot of people are still kinda not so into it. So romance books are always kind of controversial, so it's not a big surprise that one I love could get poorer ratings. I'm a bit surprised it's this one though, which is Second Sight by Amanda Quick, the first book in the Arcane Society series. Granted, this was really the first romance book I ever read, so it could just be my mind skewing the memory as to its goodness. I have liked the series though as it's continued, which, by the way, I'm still not all the way through. There is a lot of books in this series. Anyway, people's reaction to this one seems to be kinda, it was okay. I guess I'm going to have to reread it and see if I just didn't have enough experience with the genre to recognize a not so great book at the time, or if it's as great as I remember it. Brightly Woven by Alexandra Bracken. Now this does surprise me because this is by far my favorite Alexandra Bracken book, but it's got a Goodreads rating far below her Darkest Minds books. Some people thought it was really boring and it didn't take itself seriously. Which I suppose, if you read the Darkest Minds books where every 3 seconds something blows up and everything is deadly serious, it might not be what you're expecting, but it's a fun fantasy romp, and it's really good at being a fun fantasy romp. Anyway, those are the books that I love, but a lot of other people don't. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought, did you like them? If you didn't, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on why.